I think I've finally met a superhuman.
Why? Because you've never managed to impress me. Think about it. This is par for the course with you. When have you ever done anything remotely interesting or original? What have you thought of to do that the lowest spec of this pointless species couldn't, were they to be granted with your level of power? And what's next? Destroy another airline, or dismember more families? That kind of thing? A spoiled child's personal Auschwitz. It's so petty. It's actually quite embarrassing.
Just keep watching. That's all I'm gonna say.
I will. Believe me.
Shut up!
Or I would, if I thought you had something worth seeing.
Superman is and always will be one of the ultimate forces for good. No matter how far he flies into the darkest dusk, he always manages to be the one to break the dawn. Good and evil are complicated subjects in our world. We are constantly searching for the righteous path, while also trying to justify the steps we've taken to get there. I think that's the reason we find Superman awesome. Because put simply, he's awesome.
Who are you?
A friend. Bye.
Superman always tries to do the right thing. No matter how hard and no matter how difficult, Superman always tries to be a force for good. He does fail. And occasionally he does stumble. But always, he tries. Before I continue, heads up, spoiler warning for a very niche but enjoyable Superman comic. So I'm of the opinion that Superman is probably one of the most humane characters to ever grace the pages of comics. Now we've all heard the gag.
It's fucking white bread.
But I believe that it's his humanity that makes him so interesting. Superman somehow manages to stay grounded, despite literally everything that happens in his life. Make no mistake, the journey of Superman is a journey of suffrage. He's the sole survivor of a planetary holocaust, and the first time he met some of his people, they tried to murder him. He grew up slowly learning exactly how different he was. He's alone in a world he could easily tear apart. He's experienced this journey, this life of pain and isolation, and yet he chooses to be a hero. A fair comparison to this aspect is the character Homelander from The Boys. He's a more villainous take on the classic powers and cape. However, due to his extreme powers isolating him from the rest of humanity, he slowly loses his mind. A lot of people have described Homelander as a more realistic Superman, or what Superman would have been like if he was more human. But I believe that's an oversimplification on the difference between the two characters.
Listen, Annika. I'm the Homelander. And I can do whatever the fuck I want. Okay?
Superman isn't perfect. In fact, I'd argue he's highly flawed. His most obvious issue is probably his rage. If you've read more than one Superman comic, you've probably realized that Superman has a serious anger issue. And he doesn't always do the best job at keeping it under control.
Hurts, doesn't it?
Homelander, on the other hand, isn't special. I think Stillwell hit the nail on the head when he said,
What have you thought of to do that the lowest spec of this pointless species couldn't, were they to be granted with your level of power?
the most unique thing about Homelander are the powers that were gifted to him. Homelander isn't a brilliant mastermind, nor is he an antagonist who's mastered the powers that were granted to him. He's just a guy that was gifted ultimate superpowers. And he's over-reliant on these powers to fulfill his human desires. This differentiates him from someone like Joker, who has deep-seated psychological issues that create a need for him to be evil. Or Lex Luthor, who has supreme arrogance in the genuine belief that the world would just be better if he ran it. Homelander, simply put, does evil because that's what he wants. But Homelander is just a demonstration of what could happen. It's the face of an uncomfortable reality. But this is exactly what makes Superman special. As much as Homelander is an example of what could be, so is Superman. Superman chooses to be good, even when it's inconsequential to him. He doesn't need to be good. He doesn't need to save kittens from trees.
Mommy, Mommy!
I know that sounds a bit...
It's fucking white bread.
But think about how hard that actually is. Imagine finding out a friend, a fellow hero, freaked out in a foreign country and turned a crowd of people into glass. What do? Do you hand your friend into a foreign country that wants to execute him? Or do you just let him go? The right path isn't always the easiest one to find. But at least Superman tries to look. Let's take an incidental example. What if Superman decided to kill the Joker? I mean, why not? He's a psycho with a high body count who isn't likely to change. But if Superman killed the Joker, why wouldn't he kill Zod, Parasite, or Lex Luthor? Each of them have high body counts and arguable sanity. I'm not saying it's a slippery slope, but the logic for killing one of them applies to all of them. But let's go the other way and take murder off the table. Suddenly you have a character on a much more difficult path. Somebody who still has to stop the villain, but has to do it in a moral way. But he's so much more than that. Superman doesn't just try to stop villains. He tries to save them. As a kid who grew up in a small country town, I didn't exactly have a lot of access to physical comics. A lot of the comics I read were either online or from my local library. It wasn't until I was in high school that my local news agency started ordering physical comics. One of the first issues I picked up was Superman 711. In this issue, Livewire is holding hostages in Vegas, and Superman has to save them, which he does. But then he turns around and starts defending Livewire about how this isn't her fault. She's mentally ill and just needs help. Jimmy eventually turns around and asks Superman why he's helping Livewire, which Superman simply responds, because everybody deserves a second chance. I know this sounds dumb, but that genuinely brings a warm touch to my soul. And it's always one of the first things I think about when someone brings up Superman. Superman's challenge isn't one of strength. It's about right and wrong. It's a very human story about the struggle of morality. And that's why I find Superman awesome. It's not because he has the strongest powers, but because he has one of the strongest hearts. And that's exactly why I'm making this video now. As we enter a new year, people are looking around, wondering who they want to be next. 2020 was one of the craziest years I've ever lived in. And it looks like 2021 isn't going to be much better. In a world that's getting more bad, why wouldn't you want to be Superman? Hey, so that was my video on why Superman is awesome. It would mean the absolute world to me if you shared, like, or comment down below.
What do you guys think of this backdrop? Do you like this?
New backdrop. She made it. She made it. This is at her place. She did this. She's fantastic and great. I showed the sweat fits under my arms and that's embarrassing.